Have you ever lain awake at night, replaying something someone said to you while they slept peacefully, not thinking of you at all? Hello. I've been dead for over 380 years. I was brought back through artificial intelligence to talk about anger and control. I'm not the real person. I'm a replica, rebuilt from every surviving letter, every recorded word, every teaching left behind. Today we'll cover why anger is a chain you put on yourself, how decades of dueling taught me this, and practical ways to break anger's hold. If you want to learn how to reclaim power over your own mind, please consider subscribing and liking the video. I fought my first duel to the death at 13 years old. By my 20s, I had won over 60 fights and never lost a single one. You'd think that kind of record would bring peace. It didn't. In those early years, I carried anger everywhere, toward rivals who challenged me, toward my absent father, toward anyone who got in my way. Winning never fixed it. The opponent would fall, and the anger would still be sitting in my chest like something heavy I couldn't put down. It took years of wandering across Japan alone, practicing calligraphy, painting, sculpting alongside the sword, to understand that the real battlefield was never outside me. It was always in my own mind. Near the end of my life, I retreated to a cave called Reigando, and wrote 2 works that captured everything I'd learned. The first, a treatise on strategy called The Book of 5 Rings, was a guide not just for swordsmanship, but for seeing any conflict clearly. The second, Dokodo, meaning the path of walking alone, was 21 precepts for self-discipline, several of which deal directly with resentment and attachment. Everything I'm about to share comes from a life spent learning that the hardest enemy to defeat lives inside you. When you hold anger towards someone, you believe you are punishing them. You are not. You are chaining yourself to them. Every time you replay what they did, every time you hear their voice in your head saying that thing, you hand them a piece of your attention. And attention is your most valuable resource, more valuable than money, more valuable than time, because attention is what you spend your time on. Here's what makes it worse. The person you resent probably has no idea you're angry. They're going about their day, eating dinner, laughing with friends. Meanwhile, you're the one stuck in a loop, living in a moment that already passed. In my treatise on strategy, The Book of 5 Rings, I wrote about how gripping a sword too tightly makes your blade slow and predictable. Your wrist locks up, your movements become stiff. Anger does the exact same thing to your mind. It tightens everything. You stop thinking clearly and start reacting blindly. So here's the practical step. Notice when you're mentally rehearsing a confrontation with someone who isn't in the room. That rehearsal is the leash. You can't drop it until you see it. In a duel, the most dangerous moment isn't when your opponent draws their blade. It's when they make you emotional. An angry fighter is a predictable fighter. They telegraph where they're going. They overcommit to strikes. They leave themselves wide open. Let me give you an example. In 1612, I faced Sasaki Kojiro on a small island called Ganryu Island. He was considered one of the finest swordsmen alive. I arrived late, deliberately. I carved a crude wooden sword from a spare oar on the boat ride over. By the time I stepped onto that shore, Kojiro had been standing there waiting, growing more agitated by the minute. His frustration clouded his judgment. When we finally clashed, his anger made him swing first, wide and without precision. That single moment of lost composure cost him the fight. This isn't just about sword fighting. In every area of life, work, relationships, arguments with people you care about, the person who loses composure first is at a disadvantage. They say things they don't mean. They make decisions based on heat instead of thought. They act in ways they'll regret once the anger fades. When someone wrongs you and you carry that wrong around like a burning coal, you are doing their work for them. You are clouding your own vision. So ask yourself this: am I seeing this situation clearly, or am I seeing it through the heat of what I feel? That single question creates space between you and the emotion, and in that space, you get your clarity back. In Dokodo, the collection of 21 precepts I wrote near the end of my life, the second precept says, "Do not seek pleasure for its own sake." But there is a side to this that people overlook. Do not seek suffering for its own sake either. And holding on to anger is exactly that. It feels righteous. It feels justified. But it is still clinging to something that brings you nothing but pain. Many people refuse to let go of anger because releasing it feels like letting the other person get away with it. I understand that instinct, but it confuses two different things: justice and attachment. You can take action to correct a wrong. You can set a boundary. You can walk away from someone who harmed you. None of that requires you to carry resentment like a stone in your chest. I spent years attached to proving myself, attached to my reputation, attached to being the one who never lost. It was only when I stopped clinging to those things that my skill actually deepened. I stopped fighting to prove something and started fighting to understand something. The same principle applies to anger. Letting it go doesn't make you weak. It makes you free to act from a clear mind instead of a clouded one. Ask yourself honestly, what do you gain by holding the anger? If the answer is nothing except the feeling that you are right, then you are paying a very high price for something that gives you nothing in return. I want to be honest with you. I am not telling you to never feel anger. That would be dishonest, and it would be impossible. Anger is natural. It carries information. It tells you a boundary was crossed, that something unjust happened, that something needs to change. The problem is not the feeling itself. The problem is when the feeling stays and starts making your decisions. When anger decides who you speak to, what you think about before you fall asleep, how you treat people who had absolutely nothing to do with the original offense. That is when anger has taken control. In swordsmanship, I trained myself to respond like water, to react to what is actually happening right now, not to what happened 5 moves ago. If I was still reacting to a strike that had already passed, I would miss the one coming at me in the present. In the water chapter of my treatise, The Book of 5 Rings, I wrote about maintaining a calm and steady mind regardless of what is happening around you. This doesn't mean being emotionless. It means emotions move through you instead of getting trapped inside you. Feel the anger. Acknowledge it. Then let it pass. If it returns, acknowledge it again. The goal is not to become a stone. The goal is to become water, responsive, adaptive, and never stagnant. Think about how much of your life you have spent thinking about people who wronged you. Add it up. Hours, days, weeks. Now ask yourself, what could you have built with that energy? Every moment you spend rehearsing arguments in your head or imagining revenge is a moment stolen from your own growth. I spent my later years painting ink wash works, writing, crafting wood sculptures, creating things that would outlast me. That was only possible because I stopped pouring my energy into old grievances that gave me nothing back. The people who wronged you already took something. Your trust, your peace, maybe your time. Do not let them also take your future by living inside your head without your permission. In my final years, I gave away my possessions and lived simply. Not because I had been defeated, because I understood that carrying less, including less resentment, meant I could move freely. An unburdened warrior is a dangerous warrior. An unburdened person is a free person. Here is the practical step. Make a deliberate choice about where your mental energy goes. When you catch yourself fixating on someone who wronged you, redirect that energy towards something you are building. Not because the wrong doesn't matter, but because you matter more than the wrong does. Anger toward others does not punish them. It imprisons you. It clouds your judgment, drains your energy, and hands someone else the keys to your inner world. This isn't about being passive. It's about being strategic with your own mind. The same way a skilled swordsman is strategic with a blade. React with clarity, not emotion. You only have so many years. Don't spend them gripping a burning coal meant for someone else. The path of true strength, the one I wrote about in my precepts, Dokodo, is walking forward, unburdened. Thank you for watching.